What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of The Drop presented by Discover. Greg Wyshynski, Arda Öcal, the wait is over. No more time for deliberations. We don't care about your preseason picks because the regular season is here now.
Yeah.
And
there was that other game that happened earlier overseas, but we don't count that.
No.
This is the real start of the regular season.
That was a soft launch, and this is where it's at. Opening night, right here, triple header on ESPN. You got the Blues and Kraken, 4:30 Eastern. The Bruins and Panthers, there will be a banner raised, 7 o'clock. And the Blackhawks and Utah Hockey Club.
The Utah Hockey Club, home to the $3 hot dog and the $3 or $2 box of popcorn. That's how you endear yourself to a fan base, man, is you make everything cheap so you can go to the game and eat.
As long as you can see the ice.
Yeah.
That's another topic. You know what? No. I am a fan of the Utah owners.
No. Everybody was freaking out about the view, the sight lines in Utah's arena. It's the same thing that happened at Barclays. Remember Barclays Center when the Islanders played there?
Absolutely.
And you sat in those seats, you couldn't see, a third of the ice. You know what you do? You crane your neck. Or you know what you do? You watch the little video screens around the place, and then you can just kind of follow the game when you can't see the puck and the players.
At the very least, temporary solution. I believe in the owner. I think Ryan Smith's going to get the job done. I'm cool with it.
The whole point of them going there is to try to get a new arena at some point.
As we get you ready for tonight, our triple header on ESPN and ESPN Plus, we're going to go through all 6 teams that are in action tonight. We're not counting the global.
I know.
The 6 teams that are in action tonight, and we're going to say whether they are a winner or a loser going into the season. Do they have a great offseason? Are we happy with what happened, etc.? This is Winners and Losers presented by Discover. Let's begin with the St. Louis Blues. Winners or losers from the offseason?
I mean, winner in the sense that they finally became one of these teams that leveraged the rules to their benefit. Getting Broberg is from the Oilers on an offer sheet. That's a coup. He's going to fit in nicely on their blue line, playing probably with Justin Falk to begin with, and eventually maybe playing with Colton Parayko. And Dylan Holloway, everybody's saying this is going to be a great addition to this team. He's got speed. He's got a motor. He's got some offensive upside. So they identified the Edmonton Oilers being in a cap pickle. They may or may not have exacted revenge on Stan Bowman for all those years, and the Blackhawks put a beat down on the Blues. That's not something that Doug Armstrong was willing to admit. Put the offer sheets out, got the players, and got 2 pretty good ones.
Do you believe that Doug Armstrong would also offer sheet his mom if his mom were the GM of another team?
Well, he said that. He said, even if my mom was the GM of the Oilers, I would have done the same thing. But listen, knowing how this man operates, she's definitely matching those offer sheets and then going after Jordan Kyrou at some point down the line.
Yeah, we didn't fantasy book that part. We just, enjoyed the quote. That's the St. Louis Blues. I agree. And I don't know where the Blues are as a team, though. Like, I think that I agree. The sneaky offer sheet success, improvement. But overall as a team, I don't know what to think.
They're in the mushy middle in the Central Division. I mean, they're not as good as Dallas. They're not as good as Colorado. They're not as good as Nashville, in my opinion. I think Winnipeg's taken a step back. They might be kind of on the same tier as them. They're definitely better than Chicago. Yeah. Obviously, we can agree with there. And the Utah one is kind of a weird thing in the mix too. But I don't know. Like, they clearly have some players with upside. Robert Thomas, Kyrou just mentioned. Their blue line doesn't dazzle me. The Binnington of it all. I mean, and I was somebody who's always been not the biggest fan of Jordan Binnington, but, I think he's starting to prove that the defenders of his game are justified in their faith in him being a good starting goalie in this league in the sense that he played pretty well last year. So it wouldn't shock me to see them as a wild card.
Okay.
But they're a team that I can't quite get a handle on what their ceiling is this year under Drew Bannister.
Let's talk about another team that had a couple of interesting pickups in the offseason, the Seattle Kraken. Brandon Montour, Chandler Stevenson joined the lineup. But overall, winners or losers?
I think they're losers in the sense that they didn't do enough to convince me they're going to get back to the playoffs. I hate to say this because I want the best for this market, but these Kraken teams so remind me of those Ron Francis Carolina Hurricanes teams that are populated with pretty good players. They play okay, but by no means are they teams that were like upwardly mobile within their own conferences to the point where you're convinced they're a cup contender. They just seem average. Now, maybe Dan Bylsma behind the bench makes this team better than average. Maybe Montour and Stevenson have a big effect. Maybe Shane Wright takes a huge step that we're not anticipating and changes things. But to me, they're just a team that's kind of treading water. That's not something you want from a Kraken. You want a Kraken to be monstrous in the ocean with tentacles flying and mouths going rah, 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 rah. Yeah, you don't want a Kraken treading water.
You want season 2 Kraken, not season 1 Kraken. I get what you're saying. Exactly. Or season 3, I suppose. Blues and Kraken, that's the 4:30 Eastern game again on ESPN and ESPN+. Continuing with winners and losers presented by Discover, let's go to the Chicago Blackhawks. I'm calling them a winner. If you listen to our preview special that is in our archives now, I was very bullish on the moves that the Blackhawks did. I'm not saying they're a wild card contending team. I don't even think they're going to sniff the postseason necessarily, but I do think they're going to take a leap forward. They added some great pieces. I like Tyler Bertuzzi, Teuvo Teravainen. I like a healthy Taylor Hall around Connor Bedard, and I love Nick Foligno as the appointment of captain with the Chicago Blackhawks. So there's a lot to be excited about if you're a Blackhawks fan.
Yeah, I mean, the bar was set at please get Connor Bedard some help. And they cleared that bar. You know, they got Tyler Bertuzzi, they got Teravainen. They're going to play in a line with Bedard. That's going to be very helpful to him in moving forward as a goal scorer in this league. Alec Martinez on the blue line. You know, they're clearly a better team than they were last year. But really, the pivot to going back to playoff contention, I think, is when we start to see more of these high-end players really actualize that they've been drafting. But they should be more competitive than they were last year.
The Blackhawks are in Game 3 of our triple header on opening night tonight. That's a 10 p.m. Eastern start again on ESPN and ESPN+. They're playing the Utah Hockey Club. This is the regular season debut of NHL hockey in Salt Lake City. Utah had a good draft. Utah were pretty busy in the offseason. It seemed like Ryan Smith really wanted to set the tone, and it all rolled downhill, and that's the vibe in Utah. Winners or losers?
They're winners because, you know, first of all, they escaped Mullet Arena, so winner right there. But you know, when you add a Mikhail Sergachev to your blue line, John Marino, Ian Cole, to a group that has a lot of really high-end talent up front that could certainly pop in a pretty significant way. They could have 2 really good lines on this team to go along with some good grunts down the lineup in front of what I consider to be really good goaltending with Connor Ingram. They're a team that's going to flirt with a playoff spot, and they're going to flirt with a playoff spot because of the changes that they made in the offseason. The enthusiasm of playing in a new market, I think, is going to be wind in their sails. I like what they're doing, but to your point, though, like even if they do flirt with the playoff spot this year, it's all of those draft picks that Bill Armstrong has made over the last few seasons, especially in their defense core, that's going to make a real difference in this team. And they're going to be terrific in maybe like 2 or 3 years. But right now, I think they're going to be very competitive. Don't forget, the Coyotes were very much in the conversation for a playoff spot last year before the conversation changed to you're all moving. And then they lost like 14 straight games. So we get rid of a 14-game losing streak, Arda. Maybe we're a playoff contender again.
Well, first of all, we have to say that the Coyotes' history does not apply to Utah. Utah is a new franchise. We don't talk about the Coyotes as it pertains to Utah, okay? So that didn't happen, according to them, okay? Yeah. According to that sweater with UTAH on it, with beautiful color scheme.
Yeah.
Didn't happen.
Yeah. The future
but
Yetis.
Yes, you're right.
The future Yetis.
And also, one thing
I'll say. Cut to the chase.
One thing I will say, though, is if they are competitive and if they are doing very well and they're looking to add a couple pieces and tweak, I can absolutely see them being busy at the trade deadline.
They could be. And I think that's the key, right? Like, I don't think Ryan Smith is really looking for this team to be in the basement, and he wants them to be competitive right off the hop, obviously, to help entice fans to come buy those $3 hot dogs.
In the middle of the triple header, the banner will be raised. The reigning, defending, undisputed Stanley Cup champions in the National Hockey League, the Florida Panthers, will raise their first Stanley Cup banner to the rafters as they welcome a team they defeated en route to that. And 2 years and counting, actually. So it's
Yeah.
going to be a bad day for Boston Bruins fans to have to endure this.
Yeah.
But the Florida Panthers, they will be hosting the Boston Bruins. That's a 7 p.m. Eastern start, again on ESPN and ESPN+. Let's start with the Boston Bruins. Obviously, a lot of focus is going to be on Jeremy Swayman. No more goalie hugs. The tandem is separated. All eyes on Swayman in net. The center depth was the big question mark for them last year.
Yeah.
They get Elias Lindholm, so that plugs up one need, which is very good.
They'll be okay. There's just something off about this team. I do feel like the window is shutting on this group. And in my bold predictions, which you can read on ESPN.com, I wondered if this could be Jim Montgomery's last year. It's his last year of his contract. They've talked about an extension with him. But ultimately, if the Bruins are out, if they're out of the playoffs, he's done. If they're one and done in the playoffs, he's probably done. I wonder if this is the last hurrah for this coach and this group.
And, of course, the Achilles heel for the Boston Bruins for the last 2 seasons anyway has been the Florida Panthers.
Yeah.
And 2 straight trips to the Stanley Cup final and winning the Holy Grail last season. But the question is, based on the comings and goings of the personnel on the roster, could they run it back? It may look a little less likely than it did a couple months ago. What say you?
I say that they lost a lot of talent. They're trying to replace it as best they can with downgrades, and ultimately that means they're probably an off-season loser. Hard to call a team that's partying with the Stanley Cup all summer a loser. But, when you lose Montour, when you lose Ekman Larson, Tarasenko walks away, then you lose a lot of your grunts, your Cousins, your Stenlund, your Lomberg. There's a lot of sort of attrition on that roster besides, the biggest name, which was probably Montour. You factor in probable regression for a guy like Sam Reinhart. There's a lot to believe that this team's going to maybe take a little bit of a step back this year based on personnel and based on how high the heights were last year. So I got to give them a bit of a loser on this one. But again, hard to call a team that's going to raise a banner a loser.
And there's still people that are picking the Panthers as their Stanley Cup pick going into the season.
Yeah.
I'm definitely picking the Oilers. I said this on our preview episode, the last episode we did on the Drop presented by Discover. And actually, that brings us right into the projections. We love to do projections here. We love to pontificate and think about what things will happen. Fantasy book, if you will. So we're going to predict the 2024-25 NHL standings, exactly how they will be in the middle of April. This is what's going to happen. This is what will happen. Bet on it.
It might.
Book it.
So I mentioned on the first episode we did that I don't have a handle on this season. Part of that is probably paternity leave. I had paternity leave. I had father brain for most of the summer.
Okay, let's not book it then. Scale it back a little bit.
I was a real fake Canadian who decided to leave my job on July 2nd and then get back into it in September. I'm looking at rosters. I'm like, how did this guy get here? So that's the level of insight I'm bringing to the table right now with these predictions.
Okay.
That being said, I am extremely smart. And I study the numbers. I run them through my model. My model being an Excel sheet that has, I believe, the add feature on it, so I can count up points.
Macros? Are you at macros or no?
Just I have a NASA supercomputer in my office that churns through all the probabilities of what the standings could look like, and I come up with this. And here's what I come up with, Arda.
Okay.
Atlantic Division. We'll go Panthers first, Toronto Maple Leafs second, Tampa Bay Lightning third. So your top 3 are the 2 Florida teams sandwiched around Toronto. Yeah. I still think Florida probably has the juice to finish first in that division. Like you, I'm a little bit wary about the Leafs goaltending. I am intrigued to see what the Craig Berube effect is in Toronto. I'm not a fan of Craig Berube, the tactician, but I am a fan of Craig Berube, the hulking, massive man who can yell at you and get you motivated to do good things. And maybe that's ultimately what the Leafs need.
Bingo. I think that's exactly what the Leafs need. And you're also giving us a Toronto-Tampa first-round matchup.
Why not? Run it back.
Good. All right, good.
Tampa is going to be fun. I like some of the moves they've made to supplement the lineup beyond what is going to be an insanely good top line with Gensel, Point, and Kucherov. So we'll put them third. Metro Division top 3.
Yeah.
NJD number 1.
I agree with you on that. I think they're going to be great this year.
I think I am concerned about how the pieces fit. I don't want to make too many judgments from the early part of the season, but 2 good goaltenders, a whale of talent on that team, some adults in the room to kind of keep it on the straight and narrow if they do have adversity. Health is always a concern, as we saw last season, but I think that they're a little bit deeper now to maybe handle the loss. Like if Dougie Hamilton goes down again, they can maybe handle that easier than they did last year when it was like Luke Hughes and Simone Nemec trying to figure it out themselves.
Sure. And by the way, 2/3 of the cover athletes of the latest NHL video game, which always does well for whoever's on the cover, right? I mean, every year they just go on to great success. Their teams, no, never.
Rangers then Islanders. That's right. We're keeping it New York local.
Wow.
Bagels and schmear for everyone. Triangle slices of pizza. The Islanders are a team that people are just like waiting to fall off. They're the team that you look at and say, you're going to be out so someone else can get in. I don't buy it. Like, they're a really solid roster. You know, Noah Dobson's taking the leap. I think Sorokin's better year over year. Patrick Waugh is going to have a full season behind the bench to mold and shape this team the way he wants. A lot of good soldiers in that lineup and a lot of talent, more scoring talent in that lineup for the Islanders than they've had in years past.
Yes.
So I think they're going to make the top 3 in the Metro.
Patrick Waugh with Sorokin too, I think. Yeah, I agree with you. Those are the 2 I'm looking at to spur the success there.
Let's talk wild card.
Okay.
Let's get crazy here for a second, Arda, okay?
Oh my gosh, okay.
The Boston Bruins will probably be a wild card. They're good enough to figure it out. Jim Montgomery teams get into the playoffs. That's what they do. Elias Lindholm gives them a much better center than they had on the roster last year. They're still a very good hockey team. Wild card 2.
Yep.
It's gonna be somebody from that group. That group we've all been waiting for. Ottawa, Detroit, and the Buffalo Sabres. Who could emerge from the pack? Or is it the Carolina Hurricanes, who I didn't mention in the Metro Division?
Yeah.
Well, there's a reason I didn't mention them, Arda. Because I have the Hurricanes out and the Buffalo Sabres in, baby! Whoa! The drought's over. The drought ends. The last man to see the Buffalo Sabres in the playoffs was Lindy Ruff.
And
he'll now be the first man to see them back in the playoffs after over a decade outside looking in. Look, there is a ton of talent on this roster. I can see this team being one that looks like the Devils from a couple of years ago, that plays fast, that plays energetic hockey. I think Ruff gives them some strong fundamentals to play better defensively. They're going to need goaltending. They're going to need some guys to make the leap in potential. Thinking of guys like Jack Quinn, for example. I think they could do it. I'm going to pick them to make the playoffs this year.
I love that pick.
Yeah.
Their goaltending might become the best tandem or among the best tandems in the league. No. UPL, terrific season. Mm-hmm. Big improvement. I remember speaking with him last year, and he specifically said, I gained confidence in the confidence that the coaching staff gave to me, essentially bestowing upon me that number 1 position.
Yeah.
I think he's going to thrive in that environment. Devin Levi can become a solid backup goal. He needs a little bit more improvement, but I'm bullish on that tandem. You are not. You don't look like you are.
I just want you to call him a Padawan. Like, you clearly want to call Devin. We've talked about it on the show before. Devin Levi is a huge Star Wars fan. That's why you're a big Devin Levi fan. But, like, he's a Padawan. He's still learning.
Yes.
But the key to me, though, for them is that they also have James Reimer in the mix, who could be a stabilizing force in goal in case Levi isn't necessarily ready to jump up and play huge minutes. So, again, it's going to have to happen sometime. It might as well happen this year. I like them a lot. Let's go Buffalo for the playoffs.
And it would be amazing for that market because Buffalo Sabres fans are among the best hockey fans in the entire league.
Get in there now. Get your wooden tables and lighter fluid now before there's a run on them come April.
You think
when
that
the Sabres make the playoffs?
You think that they'll bring the Bills tradition to like Sabres tailgates for playoff games?
You don't think they will? I just assume everybody in Buffalo is a Sabres and a Bills fan. I just assume that's just your birthright.
Well, I didn't know that the tradition. I guess in thinking about it, probably would happen, right?
Absolutely.
There has to be some sort of different twist to it, though.
The Carolina
maybe double tables.
Let's talk about the Carolina thing for a second, though, because I'm sure there's a lot of questions about me fading a team that has been in the playoffs since like the Jurassic era. Sure. So they lost. Here's a partial list of what they lost. Gensel, who obviously was a trade deadline pickup. Brady Shea, Brett Pesce, D'Angelo, who is in the KHL and isn't great defensively, but gave them a little bit of depth on the blue line. And then Teravainen was really the biggest one for me, as he's a real glue guy. They bring in Gostisbehere, Shane Walker, William Carrier, Jack Roslovic. I mean, they bring in players that could be plug and play in a Rob Brindamore system, but again, I just see it as a roster of diminishing returns.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
I was going to say, and we need to, I like the spicing up. I just like the Sabres pick over the Carolina pick to start the season. I think that's a good one.
Okay, well, thank you. I appreciate that.
The West, in the Central, I like this order. Dallas number 1, Nashville number 2, Colorado number 3. It's hard to argue. Like, I actually like the positioning too. Dallas is a sleeper pick for Stanley Cup champion.
Yeah.
They're a terrific roster. Nashville, vast improvements. Look no further than Steven Stamkos. Like, there's going to be a lot of jarring, like, oh, this is bizarre to see, but they have the possibility to really excel with that roster. And Colorado is Colorado. They're always going to be good.
We assume.
With that.
Yeah,
we assume with that roster.
Yeah, and again, there are questions about Nikushkin, questions about Landeskog, but if things work out correctly for them, they should be fine. Pacific, Edmonton on top. They could be an absolute buzzsaw again if they play as well as they did under Knobloch last year. Vancouver, I'm going to go with the sturdiness of the system and the incredible talent that they have up front, and guys like Elias Pettersson over the concerns that we have about Thatcher Demko in goal. Vegas Golden Knights third. You are not a fan. I think you believe that there's a chance they can miss the playoffs. I happen to think that when you have the sturdiness of a Bruce Cassidy system, you have 3 great defensemen on your blue line in Hanifin, Theodore, and Pietrangelo. They'll figure out enough scoring despite being depleted on the wings. I think they'll be all right. I think they'll finish third.
I think they had a disappointing offseason or a regressive offseason. Mm-hmm. So we'll see how that translates for the Vegas Golden Knights. The wild card positions for the Western Conference. You have at wild card 1, the Los Angeles Kings.
Yeah, Doughty's loss to injuries month to month is gonna hurt him in a pretty big way. But I still think that they are good enough to be a wild card team, mostly because the rest of the division stinks. So they're going to be able to bank a lot of points. And obviously, Kopitar is still there. Byfield in the middle of Fiala and Fogle could be a really dynamic line for them. I think that they'll tread enough water with Doughty out to be okay and be a wild card team. Then it comes down to 2 teams. It comes down to the Winnipeg Jets and, in my opinion, the Utah Hockey Club. I think the Jets take a hit. I think they're going to really miss the presence of Rick Bowness behind that bench. I never thought I'd say that, but the man produced results with that team over the last 2 seasons. And I just think that Utah's got ceiling. I think they've got momentum from being in a new market. They've got great young players. They've got a very sturdy blue line now because of the offseason acquisitions in front of great goaltending. I think the Utah Hockey Club has that first-year magic in the NHL that we see so often, and they jump up and grab wild card 2 in the Western Conference.
Strong honeymoon phase for the Utah Hockey Club, says Greg Wyshynski. A lot of people would love to see it. It would be spectacular if indeed that happened. That will remain to be seen. Again, I can't wait to see where we stand with all of this in December. Maybe we won't revisit it. Maybe we'll just leave it here. Where we will go next here, though, really excited about this because it's always fun to talk to NHL players when they have to move.
Yeah.
And not just from a trade. It's like the whole team is moving.
Yeah.
You don't see it that often, but when it does happen, it's cool to understand what that process is like and dive into the details and intricacies of going, in this case, from Phoenix to Salt Lake City. Mm-hmm. And we had a chance to do exactly that with a player on the Utah Hockey Club, Dylan Guenther. New deal in a new city. Joining us here now on The Drop. Happy to have him. Utah Hockey Club forward Dylan Guenther, 3rd NHL season, 2 with the Coyotes, now playing professional hockey in Utah. Dylan, let's start there. The fact that you are now being introduced by interviews, including ours, as Utah Hockey Club forward Dylan Guenther. Have you gotten used to that yet?
I think so. I mean, the last few months have been super exciting. The team's pumped to be here in Utah. The facilities are awesome. The fans seem super excited. So I'm excited to, play the first one at home October 8th.
Dylan, let's just try to be as honest as you can on this one. Is there anything that you'll miss about Mullet Arena, even a little bit?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't really know how to answer that one. Maybe the smaller barn coming from Junior. having that little comfortability. But the new Delta Center is a lot nicer.
I am curious, it's different, obviously, if a player gets traded and they're the one that has to uproot their lives and go to a different city. You're in a situation where a lot of people had to do that at the same time, right? Like players, personnel. Like, what was that process like when it's an entire team moving and you're in the middle of it?
Yeah, it was pretty smooth, honestly. Like we were kind of all in the same boat, and I think for me, like I don't have any like I didn't have a house or furniture or anything. Like I just had a car, and I'm just moving to a different city, so it wasn't a huge transition. But I think the fact that we kind of brought everybody over, like all of the staff from the Coyotes came with us to into Utah. So I think that helps the comfortability and just allowing the transition to be as smooth as possible.
I did hear you were roommates with Jack McBain in Arizona. You guys had some troubles with bills and your water bill back in the day. Are you going to remain roommates, and are you going to have a better hold of the bills when you're in Utah?
Yeah, we're running it back. We're roommates again. And I think we've got a lot more responsibility now, a little bit more pressure on us. We got one of the top lawns in the neighborhood, so we make sure our lawn is tight, and that's kind of our new big thing now.
You might have some unique perspective on this because you just went through the process of signing a new deal with this organization, but we see a lot of Ryan Smith, right, the owner, and it really feels like he wants this team to not only succeed on the ice, but off the ice, and wants it to be a staple in Utah, right? Like, how have you and the other players found him as an owner? How hands-on is he? What can you tell us about him?
Yeah, he's great. I mean, I feel like he's super progressive and, easy to talk to. I came down here and I went to go to dinner with him and Chris Armstrong, the president, and I went and got changed into my polo and everything, and he was just kind of wearing a sweatsuit, so he's super casual, super easy to talk to, and he's super proud and Utah based. I think his story is super cool, and he's been unbelievable for us so far.
Yeah, that's the thing about billionaires, man. You usually can wear whatever you want. That's you've got carte blanche when you're a billionaire.
Yes, yeah.
You mentioned it being kind of a market that's learning about the sport. There's obviously they're gonna fall in love with you guys pretty quickly. But I was wondering for the players, is there any pressure in playing in a new market where you're trying to introduce hockey to the fans? Is there the need to maybe put on a show for the folks in the building so they come back and buy another ticket? Is there that kind of pressure that exists when you're playing in an emerging hockey market?
I don't think so. I mean, I think Utah's got the climate for hockey, so with the snow and everything. So I think that it's going to take off. And no, I mean, we just go out there and play our game. And I think that our brand of hockey is exciting. I mean, we have a good mix of veterans and young guys, and we play fast, and we want to score goals. So I think our brand is exciting, and people will want to come out and watch.
Yeah, definitely. Dylan, I'm only bringing this up because you guys ended up winning the game, but Social had fun with the quote-unquote first goal in Utah history where the puck bounced over your stick and went all the way down the ice on a delayed penalty. What were you thinking in that moment?
Yeah, I'm going to be honest, I didn't think it was going to make it. It's kind of nice the camera cut it out because I wasn't skating too hard at the start. And then I was like, oh, no, this has a chance. And maybe if it wasn't a preseason, I could have dove for it. But hey, just adding a little bit of resilience to our team and see how we respond.
Arda mentioned it before, Utah Hockey Club. You've been an Oil King, you've been a Thunderbird, you've been a Road Runner, you've been a Coyote. Yeah. Is it weird being on a team that doesn't have a mascot yet? Like, what do you guys call yourselves?
No, I like it. I mean, it's different. Kind of that European brand where Liverpool FC or whatever, but they call them the Reds. So I think as the team kind of develops the nickname, then maybe they'll go in that direction. But I like it. It's a new brand. It's a new team. New ownership and everything. So I like the approach.
Dylan, last one from me. Triple header, opening night, new NHL season. You guys are hosting the Chicago Blackhawks. Connor Bedard comes into your barn. What do you expect the atmosphere to be like? What do you expect the reaction to be and how the fans at home will perceive this?
I think it's going to be buzzing. We're super excited for it. I think we have to make sure we kind of come out even keel and not, be too rowdy and circusy. But the preseason game at the Delta Center was a great turnout. It was a pretty entertaining game. Went to overtime, couple of fights, but I think that the fans are going to be pumped, and we're going to be pumped too. So we're definitely itching to get going in the regular season here.
Cool. Last one for me. You signed a big contract. You're a young guy. Is there one luxury item you ran out to purchase, or is there one you have your eye on, Dylan?
Not really, honestly. I guess I haven't really thought about it a whole lot yet, but I don't know. I got another year to think about it, but no.
That's right. We don't want to get ahead of ourselves. You don't have the money in your pocket yet, right?
Yeah, just super grateful. Pretty cool moment for my family and I, and super happy that the organization has faith, belief, and trust in me. So I can't wait to go out there and prove them right.
Are you thinking of like, hey, maybe I should buy a car or a house or something for a family member or something like that? Like, will you be thinking good vibes to the family in any way?
Yeah, my brother just turned 16 and he texts me. He goes, "Hey, when's my car coming in?" So that little brat, he can wait. But no, I mean, as much as I dedicated my life to hockey, so did they. So I'll definitely be rewarding them eventually. Absolutely.
Dylan, we appreciate your time here on The Drop. Enjoy every moment of the very first regular season game of Utah HC, part of the triple header opening night on ESPN. Thanks, man.
Beautiful. Thanks, guys.
Thanks to Dylan Guenther for joining us here on The Drop, presented by Discover. Again, we have a triple header to kick off the 2024-2025 NHL season. You got Blues and Kraken 4:30 Eastern, followed by the banner raising, Panthers hosting the Bruins at 7, and then the Blackhawks in Utah to face the hockey club at 10. It's going to be a great way to start the season anyway.
It's going to be fantastic. I'm still getting used to the hockey club. When you go to the ESPN app and you look up the scoreboard, it just says like Blackhawks versus hockey club. It's like the Kirkland brand version of an NHL team right now. Again, call them the Yetis, for God's sakes. Just get it over with.
Is it Yetis or Yeti?
I think it's going to be Yetis if you think about the trademark complications. I mean, when you think Yeti, do you think hockey team? Or do you think like giant mug or cooler?
Well, what do you think when you say Stanley Cup?
I think of the greatest trophy in the history of sports, ladies
Just
and gentlemen.
saying. Everybody, thank you for watching us here on the Drop, presented by Discover. Enjoy the triple header, and we will see you throughout the season. Thanks for watching.
Thanks.